Steve Bowers, welcome you to Dialogue here at EPlusTV 6 and a conversation with Mike Keith, the voice, in fact, the only voice that's ever been of the Tennessee Titans. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Steve.
That's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, to be the only voice.
So far, so good.
Okay. One season at a time. Right?
That's how you have to take it. This is number 19.
Okay, that is stunning. And congratulations to you, because there have been a few transitions.
There have been a lot of transitions.
Wow. What is it like now compared to, Bud Adams was such a hands-on owner, I guess, in many ways. I mean, he stayed in Texas, but he ran that team. Or that's my impression.
You know, it's funny you'd say that, because it wasn't. All of the big decisions he was consulted on.
Okay.
And he made several of the big decisions himself. The day-to-day he had very little to do with.
Okay.
His daughter, Amy Adams Strunk, who has been the controlling owner of the team since March 2015, is much more involved in the day-to-day.
Than he was.
Much more involved. Okay. And grandson, Kenneth Adams IV, who's also part of the ownership group, lives in Nashville, works with us on a day-to-day basis, married a Nashville girl, went to Swanee himself.
Okay.
So he's been part of the community and been part of our lives for 15 years. Right. And then Amy Adams Strunk has also just bought a place in Green Hills. Right. So she's going to be spending more time in Nashville. She's still going to live permanently in Houston. That's where she grew up and that's home. But she's taking a much more active, hands-on approach. So it's a different sort of leadership now.
There's been some pressure to do that, right? Nashville media and other things. I mean,
yeah.
I
think so. And I think that's, in some ways, people want to see that ownership. And as Mr. Adams moved toward 90, we saw less and less of him.
Okay.
And so there seemed to be a void, and the Titans were called on it quite a bit by the media. And even though there really wasn't that kind of void, he was still working with us until the day he passed away in October of 2013.
Okay.
Then Mr. Adams' son-in-law, Tommy Smith, took over as president, was not very visible. And then in March of 2015, Amy Adams Strunk became the controlling owner and has kind of eased her way out front. We didn't see much of her early on, and I think we understand why now. She wanted to sit back, kind of watch everything that was going on, and then make decisions about coach, about general manager, about the total management style of the organization. And then in early 2016, she has become much more apparent publicly. And her rationale in doing that, I think, makes a lot of sense as you reflect back now. She said, look, I come in March of 2015, and everybody's going to say, what are you going to do? Well, the answer is, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I haven't been in charge. I wanted to sit back, witness it, not make any preliminary statements. And then when it was time to let things happen, then I would become more apparent to everyone, and that's what she's done.
You see that working on the inside. Then there's also, like I said, this media demand or community demand or whatever, wanting to know, are you going to stay here? Because it was out that, well, the family's going to sell the team. The family's going to sell the team. The family's going to sell this team. Right? Are they going to move it? Are they going to do something? Right?
Yeah, the sell the team thing was very prevalent. There were two reporters nationally, one in particular, who was reporting that every single day. And that gets everybody's attention.
Well, yeah, I would think.
And until you can say that that's not true and put it in a way that people see it, perception becomes reality. And that's sort of what began to happen. And then, she made the move with Coach Wisenhunt. She fired him in season and then decided to retain Coach Malarkey, who had been the interim. And then she hired John Robinson, this ball of fire from Obion County, who's just been such a breath of fresh air. And then she spent so much money on the organization. We've hired so many people to increase the size of our staff. We've done a lot of things football-wise, trading picks and making things happen and really raising the level of enthusiasm. I think the fan base in Tennessee has a very different perception now than they did 6 or 8 months ago. I think people believe her now when she says, I'm not selling the team.
Okay. The decision with Malarkey raised some eyebrows because his coaching record had not been good. I mean, right, a couple of stints, and it was kind of like, okay, well then the Titans are just punting again, right? It's like, okay, And I guess maybe that helped fuel the thing. It's like, well, they're not serious about this team.
It did. I mean, it was there, but it was also, if you were on the inside, you saw that even though Coach Malarkey went 2-7 as the interim coach, he really stabilized our ship. Okay. We were a mess, and he really.
In what way, Mike? When you?
I just don't think we had much direction in terms of what we were going to be. The way the team had been put together in terms of personnel was not the way it was being coached.
Okay.
And, if you run a car, let's use a racing analogy, if you run a car in a way that it's not supposed to be run, it doesn't work very well. Okay. That's where I think the Titans were. Okay. And so in changing coaches, Coach Malarkey said, okay, we're going to take what we've got and we're going to run it this way, and everybody's going to move in the same direction. And even if it doesn't work right away, we're going to keep doing this because we're going to build who we're going to be. And he talked with ownership a lot about that. And, I had a chance to talk with Coach Malarkey, and I said, if you get this thing permanently, what's the first thing you need? He said, we need a feature running back. He said, because we want to design our running attack to run in a very much a power way, to take pressure off the offensive line, take pressure off the quarterback. This is what we want to do. We don't have one. Coach Wisenhunt liked to have running backs who were almost like platoon players in baseball. Okay. Some play against left-hand pitching, some play against right-hand pitching, some come in for defense. He didn't have a feature back. 1 week we'd play Bishop Sankey, the next week we'd play Dexter McCluster, the next week we'd play Antonio Andrews, and so on and so forth. We didn't have that feature back, and so we traded for DeMarco Murray. We drafted Derrick Henry. Now we have 2 feature-type backs. Doing those sorts of things where you have a direction that everybody follows, that's how you have success. That's how Jeff Fisher won year after year with us. You knew exactly what we were. Okay. We were smash mouth, and on defense we brought pressure, but we did it well on both sides of the ball. You had to beat us. Who were we for years? Nobody could ever tell, including our players.
Okay. So some of that comes from the top then, just that unsettled thing there, and then the decisions that are made.
Yeah, you have to get the general manager and the head coach on the same page. Okay. And I think John Robinson was hired in part because he immediately had a connection philosophically with Mike Malarkey. Okay. And to see the two of them work together has been very, very special. We have a roster right now that really mirrors what Coach Malarkey wants in a football team. In other words, this roster can do what Coach Malarkey wants to do.
Okay, see where it goes. Because, if you're way outside the sport, well, if you got it, because there was a lot of money spent, people drafted and traded for it and everything else, got all these great players, but when they got on the field, it was kind of like.
Well, it's like Chance Warmack, our right guard, who was an All-American at Alabama, a very high first-round pick. What he's been asked to do at guard is really not what he was originally drafted to do. He was originally drafted to be a power right guard, and then they go to something that doesn't totally make sense for what his style of play is. Okay. Well, now they're moving back to what he can do well, and I think he'll be successful in his 4th year.
Well, interesting stuff, because their careers get affected by all this.
Oh, absolutely.
Right place, wrong time, or other way around. Right? Mike Keith is with us. We'll be back as we continue this dialogue at EPlusTV 6. Welcome back to Dialogue at EPlusTV 6 as we continue our conversation with Mike Keith. He is the voice of the Tennessee Titans. So, you're fired up about this.
I'm fired up.
Okay.
I like Mike Malarkey a lot. It was funny because when I was taping Titans All Access, and they let me know that Coach Wisenhunt was going to be relieved of his duties, my first question was, is Mike Malarkey going to be our interim coach? And the reason I asked that question was because of how Coach Malarkey handled himself like a man who is in charge, how he treated people, how the players respected him. There was no question in my mind who should be the interim. And he's a guy, Had some bad luck as the head coach in Buffalo, had some bad luck as the head coach in Jacksonville. But, you know, I've already made a baseball analogy, and I'm a huge baseball fan. A lot of great managers in baseball did their best work on job 2 or 3 because they've had experience. I love a head coach who's had experience, and I think we're already seeing in Coach Malarkey some adjustments in his style in this job, because he told me, he said, you know, I never thought I'd get another chance, and I always thought if I do it again, here's what I'm going to do differently. Okay. And because he got to know the Adams family well, the ownership group, and they came to know him, they chose him in spite of what his previous record had been, or his record as the interim had been, because they knew him personally. And I thought that showed real leadership from Amy Adams Strunk, because sometimes doing what you think is right in your mind is very hard because it's not always popular. And it, you know, on the surface with the record, people were very surprised.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
And so the reaction was, what? What is this?
Yeah.
And the reality is, if you had worked with him on a day-to-day basis, regardless of record, you're thrilled to see him get this opportunity.
Yeah, it was because, listen, outside it was like, well, they're not serious about this. They're just, you know, they're punting again. They're going to get another year or two, and they're going to. So why do they want to keep this team? Why would she want to do this?
She loves it.
Okay.
For one thing.
Because the Adams family was involved in a bunch of.
They have a bunch of businesses through KSA Industries. Yeah. Mr. Adams and his family have been highly successful in virtually everything.
They don't have to do football.
Nope.
Don't have to do.
No, but it's a great business. The NFL is a great business. It's a profitable business.
Okay.
You don't make $500 million a year like some perceive that they do. They don't print money. You know, it's not like that they can just do whatever they want. But, you know, NFL teams, like the Green Bay Packers last year made, and they're public because they're publicly owned, they made nearly $49 million in profits. Okay. And so, I mean, now that's the Packers, that's not everybody, but it's a healthy business. The other thing too is it's special. It's a special group of people who get to be involved with this. Okay. And the NFL is the most popular sport in America. She loves it. You know, Amy Adams Strunk actually attended every game last year. Yeah. Now, that's the 4 preseason games and the 16 regular season games. Okay. She was at all 20 games. Mr. Adams, during the time we were the Tennessee Titans, never did that. Yeah. So her interest and her passion about it is pretty amazing. Okay.
And so that's made changes as well. Then. When you translate to the field, and the interesting thing in your work is you work with the team. Right. You're also exposed to the fan base, the call-in show, the other things.
Sure.
I mean, and right, and so you see it from both sides, in I would think, in a unique way. Plus, you have the history now, being there 19 years. All right. I guess there are times you feel like, man, I really need to be able to tell you what's going on inside or what I think about it. I don't know that you always can.
I think you can to a certain degree, okay. And I think the team has done a nice job of sort of giving me freedom. And when you've been doing it so long, they trust that you're not going to go too far, or they wouldn't have let you get this far.
Get that far, okay.
You know,
because people trust you.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean,
I think people in the organization trust that I'm going to handle things the right way. But when I'm in the grocery store, or I'm speaking at the Rotary or the Sertoma or the Kiwanis, or to one of our season ticket holder events.
You don't get to get away from this, do you? That's right. You can go to the grocery store like Mike.
I was at church yesterday, and somebody leans across.
Why did we draft
we
this
have a we have a greeting period. Turn and greet your neighbor, and so I'm shaking hands, and a guy that I've known, his son and I grew up playing ball, so I've known him for nearly 40 years, and he says, "Are we going to be better?" So I start to explain this, and then the minister moves on to the next thing, so we can't go on. But you do, and I try to know as much about the ball club as I can. I go to practice, and I keep up with things as best I can in order to give people as much insight as possible. Can you tell everything? No.
Okay.
But can I be as frank as I possibly can? That's the goal. Okay. You can't, because you can't sugarcoat everything. 2 years ago, when we were going 2-14, it's like, this is just not a good football team. We're getting blown out. This is not a good football team. What was frustrating about 2015 is we were only 1 win better, but we were clearly a better team.
Football team. Yeah.
It was the most frustrating year from that standpoint that I've ever been through. And I could relate to the fans' frustration because they sensed it too. We were much closer, and yet we just couldn't pull through. And our fans are tired of losing.
Okay.
Who can blame them?
Right. Okay.
I mean, that's not a bold statement.
The fan base seems to stay intact, though. Attendance, I mean,
They're
it
amazing.
Still sells out. Not everybody shows up for every game, but you see empty seats now.
Well, we've lost some season ticket holders, but the good news this year is our numbers have gone back up.
Okay.
And our advertising's gone back up, and the radio sales and kind of everything we do has gone back up. And obviously, we put Nissan's name on the side of our stadium, which was a huge deal for us, in large part because they're a giant name and it's a good business arrangement. But they're also in our community because their North American headquarters is in Franklin.
Yeah, right.
And so for them to choose to partner with us at this point is a big shot in the arm in terms of confidence. Okay. And them saying, hey, look, we believe that you're going to be successful. So for the people who work there, that was a big deal for them to say, we're with you.
Okay.
A lot of things from that standpoint, the momentum, particularly because of Malarkey and John Robinson, the GM, and Marcus Mariota, the quarterback, and there are a lot of things that have people feeling good about the Titans right now.
Okay. We'll talk some about the industry, too, because we're seeing now some guaranteed contracts in the NFL, which is a new thing. And then you talk about the cap on younger players as well. So I want to get into that. But what about, Mike, you got a great job. You work one day a week.
I do.
Yeah. And you go.
I don't, when people say that, I don't tell them any different.
Is that right?
Because
let them be envious. It's like,
well, it's a great job.
It's a great job.
It's a fantastic job. Yeah. I love this job. And so to sit and say how much work it is or what you have to do, I mean, all that is immaterial. What they're saying is right. I have a great job. Yeah. I do work more than one day a week, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. It's always good to have you with us.
There's no heavy lifting.
And it's great we can do something you like to do. It
is.
Mike Keith is with us, and we're going to continue this conversation. We're talking a bit about the changes in the NFL as we continue this dialogue at EPlusTV 6. Welcome back to Dialogue at EPlusTV 6. Just joining us, catch this on replay. Good conversation with Mike Keith about the Tennessee Titans and where we are, and he's excited about this. A couple of changes I've noticed in the NFL. You had mentioned one to me, and then the other I've seen is that we're beginning to see some guaranteed contracts, which to some was where Major League Baseball went amiss, and that's why it costs so much to go to a game, because they're paying millions of dollars sometimes for people that are not playing anymore. But we're beginning to see this in the NFL. And then you mentioned that there's a cap on the younger players for the first 4 years of their careers. So what is that doing to the game? Or is it too early to tell?
Well, I think it's good. I think the game's very healthy. The salary cap continues to go up roughly 10% per year, so the players are making more money.
Okay.
When we started the salary cap in 1994, or 93 or 94.
But with the cap, I'm taking a risk if I guarantee you money.
Right. But it was $35 million then. It's $155 million now. and
so I've got a little wiggle room.
Well, and the other thing too is, like Marcus Mariota is being paid roughly $25 million for his first 4 years in the league. Okay. That's all guaranteed.
Okay.
But that's still roughly half of what Sam Bradford got as the number 1 overall pick the last year before the new collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. Right.
So the younger players get paid less, and the rest of that money goes to older players.
Okay.
And that's a really, really good thing. So if you're a guy you've earned your stripes and you're in the league, you're going to get more money than what you would have gotten 5 years ago as a veteran.
I'm one blow away from that going away. Right?
Right.
Okay, which has always been the challenge, I think, particularly in the NFL. Will that ease that pressure, guaranteed money now, or?
Maybe some.
Okay.
I mean, and the other thing, too, is by guaranteeing the money. See, for years what people did and why they didn't want to guarantee the money per se is they wanted to give Steve Bowers a 5-year contract and they were going to give you a large signing bonus, which they could prorate over the 5 years. That was guaranteed because that went straight into your pocket. But the difference was they wanted the salaries to be lower, and they didn't guarantee the salaries. Well, now what teams are doing is, instead of giving you the big lump sum payment up front, they're giving you a smaller bonus, and then they're guaranteeing parts of the salary. So teams are smarter because instead of pushing off all that money to the end,
so it makes sense.
They're paying as they go against the cap, which is why, I mean, you'll remember after the 2004 season, we had to totally break up our team because our salary cap numbers, we owed so much money against the cap. We had put it all off for a rainy day. Well, now we're not doing that. We're paying as we go. And as John Robinson comes in as the GM, he finds our salary cap situation in fantastic shape.
So a general manager's got many moving parts, not just the skill of the players and everything else.
It's such a tough job.
And then the coaching and the input of the
We've got to manage the coaching. You've got to manage them. You've got to manage what they say they need, because the personnel people who evaluate the players have a very different view than the coaches who coach the players. And they have a very different view of what they want. Evaluators see potential and say, if this guy is coached properly, he can become X. Coaches say, give me more of a finished product, because as we wait on this guy's potential, you're going to fire me because we're not going to win enough. So there has to be a mix in between the two. There has to be a give and take. You have to see potential, but also give them, some ready parts that they can plug in. And I think they've got a really good balance between this head coach and this general manager.
When a new player's coming to this league out of college, how different is that world when they get there?
It's massive. I mean, first of all, they can't.
Is that underestimated? Do they underestimate?
Oh, it's totally underestimated. They'll all tell you that.
That when they hit there, they think, hey, I'm a #1 draft pick.
Marcus Mariota comes in. He played at Oregon, Pac-12 football, top competition. He's played against the best of the best in college football. And at the end of his rookie year, he says, I didn't really quite understand, because the level of athlete goes up so dramatically at every position. Then you've got the demands off the field, and then you have the freedom off the field as well. Managing your own time, which in college you don't have. If you're on some sort of schedule, and a college athlete has very few free hours during the course of a week. A pro athlete has a goodly number of free hours. And I've used this before with you when we've done dialogue, and that is the biggest issue is not the money, it's time. Is he going to sit up and play PlayStation until 3 o'clock in the morning and eat Taco Bell and do what a lot of young guys would like to do because they have the money to do
it.
Most people, it's not that they blow the money, it's that they have the money. And so they can, whereas in college they can't necessarily,
you can't do it if
you can't do all the things you want to do. Well, now it's like, we can do that, and nobody's watching you at that point. You're on your own.
If coaches see it going astray, can they correct it?
Sure.
I mean, can they get
in
there and say, Mike,
there are more people to manage it too. Every team has a person who is essentially that manager of players that coordinates various programs that teach them about how to do your checkbook, that teach them about, make sure you've got your insurance, that teach them about nutrition. And you hope your older players do too. That's the part of it that's so fascinating to me, is to watch how the veterans conduct themselves, to see them carrying backpacks around where they're going to go home and study their lap or their iPad for film. They're going to get in bed at 10 o'clock. As they walk out of the building, they grab a piece of fruit or two. When you watch them eat their meals, it's as healthy and clean as it possibly can be. They're drinking water and Gatorade constantly during the week. They are as much of a professional as you are about your job, they are about their jobs. And that's what makes me the proudest of our game, because it's not just the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys and the Aaron Rodgers. There are lots and lots of players who do that. Now, are they like that when they're 21? Most of them aren't.
Okay.
Marcus Mariota was.
Okay.
You know, he did a great job with that. We've seen some guys who do that, but that learning process is, because generally when you don't, it doesn't affect you much in September and October, but in November, whoo.
Well, then when you see a Vince Young or whatever that comes through the organization that just doesn't ever quite, then you shake your head. It's kind of like,
Kills me.
could have been.
He had the ability.
Okay.
He had the ability. He was given all of the resources. Vince Young never understood what a pro quarterback had to do.
Okay.
He comes into the league, he has success, and then Norm Chow, his offensive coordinator, told him, he said, Vince, they're going to adjust to you. And if you're going to be successful, you have to learn and grow and be able to adjust back to them. And he just didn't put the time in. He would tell people now, and I think he is telling people now as he works at the University of Texas, I didn't take the job seriously enough. Because, Steve, you're not playing football anymore. You're working at football now.
Okay. You look forward to the season?
Oh, gosh. You know, every season I look forward to, but this one I'm so excited about because our building has been set on fire really for the last 7 months with new players and new staff. And, you know, another thing that we've done too that's really exciting is we've hired a lot of young people to come to work for us, and seeing those 20-somethings come in our building and what they teach you and their enthusiasm, because we're part of the NFL. I mean, I could have never played well enough to get there. So for me, to be part of it is special, and seeing these young people reminds me every day how special it is. They remind me of what I was like when I was 30 and got this chance.
Good to see you.
Good to see
always,
you.
Always enjoy this. Appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate
you.
Working with you. Thank you for being with us. Thanks to Mike Keith for this conversation. You stay with us at EPlusTV 6. This is the place where the dialogue continues.